Hello there. Today I want to take a look at a wine from Bordeaux from a very popular property, Chateau Giscours, and Chateau Giscours is a third growth from Margaux. However, this is not the first wine, the Chateau Giscours. This is the Haut Medoc from Giscours. That's the 2018 vintage of that. So Giscours is the most southerly property in Margaux. It's the first one you come to as you come up the road from Margaux. It's a historic property. There are records of it going back to the 1330s, at which stage it was a fortified chateau. The first reference to winemaking here dates to 1552, and as you can imagine, for such an old property, there have been numerous owners. At one stage it was seized during the French Revolution. It was sold to American owners for a while and has been through many hands. At one stage during the late 1880s, the property was revolutionary. It was one of the first wineries anywhere in the world to utilise gravity feed to move wine and juice around. During the late 19th and early 20th century, the estate was in the hands of the Cruz family, who sold it in 1913, and after that, unfortunately, it went through a period of neglect and fell into disrepair. So the modern history, the rebuilding of Chateau Giscours, starts from about 1954, when a winemaker who'd previously been working in Algeria, somebody called Nicolas Tarry, came to and bought the estate and set about rejuvenating it, reinvigorating it, rebuilding it, expanding it. He did that with great energy. To put things in perspective, when he first came to the estate, of the 100 hectares of vines that they had in Margaux, only 10 were in production. One of the changes that Nicolas Tarry made was the launch of this wine, the Haut Medoc from Giscours, in 1992. Now, he sold the estate on in 1995 to a Dutch businessman, Erik Albade Jelgersma, and he was able to continue the investment that was required to build the estate back up. Unfortunately, the estate really hit a low point in 1998 when there was a court case where a disgruntled former employee accused them of passing off Haut Medoc wines as Margaux. The accusation being that wine from these Haut Medoc vineyards had been blended into the second wine, the Sirène de Giscours, to increase its volume and thus increase the value of the wine being blended into the Margaux by upgrading it from Haut Medoc to Margaux. And unfortunately, the estate sort of stayed under a cloud for quite a while because this dispute took a while to come to a resolution. At about the same time as Erik Albade Jelgersma took over the estate, somebody called Alexander van Beek came to work there. And Alexander very quickly rose to the position of managing director. And despite all the issues going on around him, he very quickly got to grips with the job of improving quality in the winery. So the machine harvesters were dispensed with. A replanting program took place. There were places where almost every second vine was missing. There was an increase in the proportion of Cabernet Sauvignon planted in the vineyard, and things such as optical sorters were introduced. And you'll see over the period of about 30 years a real sort of sustained curve of improvement in the wines being made at Chateau Giscours. And one shouldn't be disparaging about the quality of the wines from the Haut Medoc vineyards. The estate has 60 hectares of vines, literally just across the boundary, mostly in the commune of Margaux, and near neighbours there are chateaux such as Chateau Comtemerle and Chateau La Lagune, so notable class growths. They do also have a small amount of vineyard in the neighbouring commune of Le Pin-Médoc, but the majority of these are in Margaux, as I say. And here you have vineyards with good, deep, friable, fine Garanais gravels, very well suited to the growing of Cabernet Sauvignon, and able to produce some really quite high quality wine. The other thing to realise about the context of the quality of this wine is that this is a wine that's about a third of the price of the estate's first wine, Chateau Giscours, and it's probably about half the price of the second wine, the Sirène de Giscours as well. So we're looking at a great value for money wine. It's made by exactly the same team and using many of the same techniques as the estate's first and second wines. So 2018 was a lovely, rich, ripe vintage. From about mid-July, the summer was hot, there were heat spikes, it was dry, the fruit was picked in very healthy conditions, despite the fact that the season had actually started very wet. There were almost record rainfall during the winter, so there were good reserves of water in the soils for a very dry, hot summer that ripened the grapes well. The blend of this wine in 2018 was 61% Cabernet Sauvignon with 39% of Merlot. As I say, the fruit was hand harvested, and after picking, the fruit was both sorted manually and using optical sorting equipment. Fermentation took place in a mixture of concrete tanks and stainless steel tanks. Maceration was conducted at about 26 degrees C and went on for 30 days, after which the wine underwent malolactic conversion predominantly in tank, although a small portion may have undergone this in barrel. Afterwards, all the wine was transferred into French oak barriques, a portion of which may have been new, and it aged there for a year prior to bottling. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? I mean, the first thing to say is this is deep, it's dark, it's almost opaque, it's dark ruby. There's a little purple note, there's a sort of a little bit of a red purple note at the rim, but not particularly blue purple or anything like that. But yes, it's deep, it's dark. The wine's 14% alcohol, and unsurprisingly, it's got good body and it's throwing tears onto the glass quite readily. So let's have a look at the aromas, shall we? There's a lovely concentrated, assured, predominantly dark red fruit moving on to black, and then over the top of that there's quite a clean cedary note coming from the oak. And it doesn't stand out so much, but I mean there's it's quite clearly an oak note there. But yes, the fruit, once you get beyond the sort of the slightly dusty oak note that's overlaying it, there's a rich, dark, ripe red plum note. There's a lovely freshness to it. You know, it's that sort of fresh, juicy plum sort of note. There's a good concentration, certainly, of that red fruit. And moving on sort of to a black plum sort of note. There is a nice elegance. There's an almost sort of slightly leafy, lifted red fruit perfume here. So let's have a taste. Yes, given the fact that this is such a warm vintage, there is quite impressive acidity here. The acidity itself is causing me to salivate, and that's before it starts to combine with the tannins, which add a sort of an additional mouth-watering bitterness there. But actually, the tannins sit behind quite a smooth, velvety, chocolatey, rich, ripe fruit. There's a real density to the fruit there, and yet there is still that good lifted acidity that's allowing a little bit of sort of red fruit, perfumed red fruit, to show at the end there, beyond the sweet spices and the slightly drying oak note. It's a wine with, as well as good concentration, it's got some nice complexity. The oak is, as I say, providing a bit of structure. There's a smoothness and a richness to the mid-palate. There's a real depth, and I think this wine's going to open with time. It probably needs 3 or 4 more years to develop and to really show a more expressive bouquet there. But in the meantime, there's this lovely freshness, lovely lively fruit there. The alcohol seems reasonably in balance, given the fact that there's such a concentrated fruit. It doesn't particularly stand out, and I suppose the good acidity is stopping the alcohol from dominating the finish and foreshortening that. So yes, the acidity is allowing those sort of red fruit notes to continue to show through on the finish. I have to say, I think this is a wine that's very attractive for drinking now, but will improve with a bit of time. It appears to be offering some really lovely, fresh Southern Medoc character. I would say it very much in the style of a wine from Margaux. Its elegance, its vivacity is very appealing, and while it'd be very lovely in a few years' time, I think actually the fact it has so much attractive fruit now, it might mean that I would have difficulty aging a wine like this. So yes, I think great value, really characterful, really nice wine. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you found the tasting of interest. If you have, do please press the like button. If you have any comments, please leave those in the feedback box below. If you have friends you think would like to watch the video, please share it with them. Do consider signing up and following us on YouTube. That would be fantastic to have your support there. But most importantly, do please try and find some time and do come back and join us for another tasting in the very near future, won't you? Thanks again. Bye for now.